Welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. I am finally recovering from jet lag. I cannot believe how long it's taken me to recover. It's been crazy. I'm just amazed at how I used to travel to Europe multiple times a month before, and I would come back and I would snap back and no biggie. And over the years, it's just become incredibly more difficult. And this wasn't even work. This was vacation. So it's really surprising to me how long it has taken me to get back on track. Anyway, I am excited though, because tonight I am starting the first session of my program From Middle Class to Millions, your 100K portfolio. And I got to tell you, I'm so thrilled for this group of folks that joined the program, because I've been putting some information into the Facebook group. It's a closed group, getting them ready, talking about the program, and them introducing themselves. And of course, I've spoken to every single person who's joined the program, and they're really incredible people. Of course, I think anybody who's incredible, who wants to take charge of their life, who wants to do something for themselves, who wants to make a change, even if they're nervous, even if they're anxious, they know that what they're doing right now isn't going to get them to where they want to be. And they take the leap and they bet on themselves. And I often think about when you're raised in a certain environment, you're really conditioned to think about the price of something, right? You're thinking about, what does it say on the sticker? What is beside the dollar sign? What are those numbers? And you decide based on the price whether or not you can afford to do the thing or not do the thing. And as I got older and I was exposed to different people and the way that different people think about money, I realized that some folks don't think about the price, they think about the cost. They think about, what is the cost of what I'm paying for at this moment? Because the price is what you have to shuck out at that time. But the cost is what you're going to get from whatever it is that you're purchasing. It's what you're going to learn, what you're going to experience, what you're going to take away, what skill you're going to acquire. How can you use it over and over and over again in the future? And I know that true investors look at the cost, because sometimes the cost is, what am I going to miss out on? What am I going to keep in my life that's going to continue to burden me? What is going to stick around in my life that's going to continue to make me feel worried or anxious or concerned, right? That's the cost too. And I know that when you are not in a circle with people who think that way, who are investors, who approach life that way, it's very, very difficult to start to approach opportunities in that manner. And I see it all the time, because I know people who are stuck, right? Stuck because of their own circumstances, stuck because of the decisions that they make, whether they decide to move forward or they make the decision not to move forward. It's still their decision. And so I see how when you have those people who people tend to think are lucky, are really the folks who oftentimes look at things in terms of, what does it cost? What does it cost? What is it going to cost me? Not what's the price, not what's the number beside the dollar sign, but how is this going to impact my life? How is it going to enhance my life? How is it going to better my circumstance? How is it going to get me closer to what I truly want? And all of the people who joined looked at the cost. They didn't look at the price. Of course, yes, do they have enough money to do this? Can they make this work? Is there a way that they can make this work? But they knew the cost of not doing this, not understanding their investments, not allowing themselves to look at their cash flow and their budgets and their debt, and all of those things would keep them in a position that they didn't want to be. And they knew that they wanted something out of life. And in order to get the things that they wanted out of life, they had to look at, what would it cost me not to take this opportunity right now that's being presented to me? So I'm really thrilled because we're going to have an amazing 12 weeks together. Like I said, the program is starting tonight. It's running right through till right after the 4th of July. I know these folks. I've talked to these folks. I know what they want. And I'm so committed to them not only learning some skills that they can carry with them throughout life. Like, of course, they're going to understand the market. They're going to understand how to invest. They're going to understand, for some of them have more than $100,000, but they really want to understand, okay, what does this mean? What can I do with this money? How can I live a full life knowing that this aspect is taken care of? And so, yeah, they're going to get all of those skills, but I want them to also expand their minds beyond what they're doing right now. And each and every one of them is kind of like sheepishly telling me about some dreams that they have that they haven't said aloud, that they haven't shared with other people in their lives. And that's my favorite thing, is to help folks make their dreams reality, but also not just in the belief and the how, because that's a big sticking point. But how do I do it? How do I get started? Those questions I can answer without a doubt, but also to give them the foundational monetary support to make their dreams come to fruition. Because a lot of times people don't do what they want to do, or don't even consider or approach doing what they want to do because they don't have the money. And I don't want money to be an impediment or a hindrance or a block to you doing what you want to do. So I know at the end of these 12 weeks, I know these folks are going to do some really incredible things. So I'm very excited about it. One of the things that I realized when I was talking to everybody who joined and people who, some folks decided that they didn't need the fundamental or the foundational program and they wanted to work with me one-on-one. And, I was fine with that. But I was very clear. There's a clear distinction about who needs to take the foundational program and who can be a one-on-one client with me. Because a one-on-one client, well, before I get to that, I want to say that every single person I talked to, whether they joined the program or they became a one-on-one client, every single person I talked to was hungry to talk about money. They were hungry to find somebody that they could express their concerns, their excitement. They could ask questions. They could get clarification. They didn't have one place where they could go where they could trust that they could share what they were thinking about money and get the questions answered that they so desperately were carrying around with them for so long. Every single person wanted to talk about money. And I think that's a reflection of what's going on in our society right now, because nobody talks about money. You're either going to hear people online, on YouTube, and social media, stuff like that, or on the news even, screaming about money in the market. Either they're talking about the market, they're talking about the price of gas, they're talking about how hard times are, they're talking about people losing their jobs. But there's nobody talking about, hey, if you still have your job, if you're still trying to figure out how to create some security financially for yourself, where do you go? And there's nobody talking to those folks in the middle. And I know this because I was one of those folks in the middle and nobody was talking to me. Nobody was saying, okay, so you have a job and you have some debt and you want to start investing and, you have all of these things and you got to manage your mortgage or your rent or childcare or paying off your student loans or paying off your credit cards or going out to dinner or maybe going on a trip. And there was nobody talking about how do you manage all of that. There was nobody out there setting sort of a course for you to follow, some steps. You got pieces, but you weren't entirely sure of how that would work for you personally. And is there an order of operations? And how do you go about doing that? And if you don't come from a family where there's that knowledge base, or there's that money, or there's that security, you've got to figure this out on your own. So I understand why a lot of folks who are a little further ahead than the folks in the foundational program wanted to work with me one-on-one, because they wanted to talk to somebody who got it, who was like, look, I know you've done these things. You didn't come for money. I get that. But you figured it out and it worked out in your favor. And you've gone beyond investing in the market. You've invested in other things as well. And I love having these conversations with folks because I'm curious about what they've done to date. If they have like reached out to other people, or have they just been going along hoping for the best? And I love that when they find me, when they discover me and my clients, and we come together, because I get to learn about individuals with just incredible minds and the things that they want to do and how incredibly smart they are. And really, they just need someone to bounce ideas off of. They need someone to help create a foundation for them to have the money to do these things. And they need someone to talk to about it. Honestly, that is really what they need. So I think for me, what I've seen that's been most successful, especially for my one-on-one clients, my most successful one-on-one clients, is that they get some fundamental things in place. And it always behooves them to do these things, because I've had clients come back to me and they've come back to me to work with me again because they're ready to go on the next level, like take their money to the next level. They understand that this is a journey. They understand that this isn't a get rich quick scheme. They understand that they're not going to be able to do all the things in the 6 months that we work together, but they know that they've done quite a few things. And then they go and they do some of those things, and then they come back and they're ready for more. And they appreciate that we have the opportunity to expand their horizons because of all of the individuals I've spoken to, because of all of the things I've done, and because of the peer groups that I'm in. I have access to people that many of my clients don't have access to, right? Because of my net worth. So because of my net worth, I'm in rooms where I hear of, see, get exposure to, and have the opportunity to get answers to a lot of questions that most people don't, because they're not in rooms with people who have this amount of money and this amount of access. And I bring that and I share it with my clients. Like, I don't care. Like, of course I'm going to share it with them, because I see what people are doing to create more wealth and bounty in their life. Well, why wouldn't I share that with my clients? That's the whole point. And I wish I had gotten access to those rooms a lot sooner. I wish I didn't have to have, a certain net worth to get in there, because if I had known this a lot sooner, I would have gotten to that net worth a lot sooner. And that's why I can accelerate the process for my clients. That's why my one-on-one clients come to me, and they can accelerate their growth, their money, expand their lives a lot faster than I was able to do that, because I have access to way more information that I can disseminate to them. And it's appreciated. So one of the things that I like to do when folks come to me first is I want to make sure that everything is cleaned up, like your cash flow, your spending, your debt, your emergency funds, your savings. Like, I would like to look at all of these things simultaneously to ensure that you have a solid foundation. A lot of people that come to me are making good money, but it's a little harem-scarum and it's a little messy. So the first thing I like to do is just clean up all of those little accounts that they may have, make sure that they have a solid emergency fund, and not an emergency fund that's just based on 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, but really looking at their numbers to see how much money do you really need in that fund. How much do we really need to put in there? If they're a couple, are both of you working? Are your jobs relatively stable? Do you have a business? What's going on? So we really do an analysis of their income to see if their expenses are going to match up with the emergency fund that they actually need. And I think it's really important to get that established. We talk about debt, if they have debt, and the kinds of debt that they have, and we get a debt payoff plan. I see a lot of people come to me and they just throw money at debt because they hate debt so much. They want to get rid of it so badly, but they don't build up an emergency fund. So the minute something happens, and it's not an if, it's a when, because something is going to happen that's going to throw you off kilter. The minute something happens, they go back into debt. And it's this anxious, nervous, let me pay off the debt as quickly as possible, but I don't have any money in the coffers, that keeps them in that cycle. I know these individuals remain in debt over and over. They pay off the debt and then they're back in, and then they're back in debt. They pay off the debt and then they're back in debt. And they can do this for years. And then, unfortunately, what happens is there could be some type of crisis, a job loss, a medical expense, something huge. And now they're in dire straits because they never got that foundation. So I immediately want to get that foundation established. I want to talk about it. I want there to be understanding about why it's so important to have this foundation. And then we can talk about how we're going to pay off the debt simultaneously. Yes, I know that most people don't like to have debt lingering, and that's why we're going to have a debt payoff date. But also, I want it to be set up in such a way that if the crisis comes amidst the paying off of debt, that it doesn't throw you completely off kilter and increase your debt load. I also think it's important to save. We as humans are notoriously poor planners. And so saving for things that are upcoming, saving for things that are, a month, 6 months, a year out, it's often difficult for people to think about and to really get the numbers so that they truly understand how much they need to save for what they want. And so I like to do that exercise, which some people find a little painful initially, to think about, how much is it going to cost for us to go on this trip in the summer? And a lot of times people just cash flow it, which I don't have a problem with that. But I do want you to think about how much it costs, because I do want you to not be surprised if it's more than you thought. Or at the end of the summer to talk about, things feel a little tight and you're not quite sure why. And that's because you weren't planning for the upcoming adventures that you were going on. This is not to say that you don't go on the trip. This is not to say that you don't go out to dinner. This is not to say that you don't go shopping. It is to say that, yes, let's build it into our spending. Spending is completely fine, but part of the spending is saving up to spend. I want to spend money, right? I want to make sure that I'm enjoying the things that I like in life. And I know that there's certain things that you like, and nobody's to judge what those things are. You determine what those things are, but I want you to have the money to do those things now and in the upcoming future. And of course, when you decide to stop working, right? So I am all about saving and investing so that you can spend. I mean, I'm not planning on sitting on a pile of money. I plan to spend. So when I was, in the case of going to France, I was saving up the money. There were certain things that I wanted to buy when I went to France. Some of these things were incredibly expensive. I knew that I wanted to purchase these things. And so, expensive to me, obviously, everything's relative. And so I saved up for these things. And the beauty is that when you save up and then you spend the money, you have no concerns when you come back. And in fact, when I came back, the market did a lovely rebound for me as well. And before we went to France, the market had dipped pretty low and people were panicking and carrying on. And some people were considering selling and, all the noise that you heard about the market. And then, hey, I came back and last Wednesday, the S&P 500 was at an all-time high. So not only did it rebound and all the money that was quote unquote lost on paper, not only did that come back, but then some. And it's funny, the money that I spent in France was like a drop in the bucket when thinking about my overall net worth. And that's why I want to get people to the point where if you get a certain amount in your portfolio, in your investments, then this spending isn't going to shake you or rock you, because it is going to be such a minuscule percentage of what you actually have that you shouldn't even have to think about it. And so that's why I like to get these foundational aspects covered very early on in our working relationship. And that's really what I do with the one-on-ones. I really dig into that with them. Let's talk about what you're saving for, what you're investing for, when you intend to retire. And when I say when you intend to retire, I don't mean what age. I mean, how much money do you need to retire? Because listen, just because the retirement age is 67, we all know that every 67-year-old can't retire. So it is incredibly imperative for you to know, okay, I can retire when I get this amount of money, not when I reach this age. And I like to run those numbers with my clients. What looks like a reality to you? Now, I have clients that see that they can retire at 55, but they know that they're not going to retire at 55. But what they do know is that, well, at 55 now I can make some different choices. At 55, maybe I scale back. Maybe I don't work 40 or 50 hours a week. Maybe I work 20 or 25. Maybe I don't work in an office any longer. Maybe I do something from home. Maybe I work in a different state, a different country. Maybe I do something entirely different. I pivot and have a different career plan altogether. This is what we're creating here. We're creating options. And so I get it when folks already understand that they've gotten and they have an understanding of their investment portfolio, that they didn't need to be in that program. They didn't need that foundational program. But what they do need is how to optimize what they already have in existence and diversify and really look at what else is available to me, what else is out there. And I think that was one of the things that I found the most exciting that I kind of stumbled upon. I wasn't as strategic as I am with my clients. I really wish that I had had the guidance that I offer, because of course, I would have reached my goals and my targets a lot sooner, but also I wouldn't have made as many mistakes, right? And so I now am like goose stepping through a landmine field, because I know what to avoid. I know what to, how to circumvent the errors. The errors that I've made don't have to be your errors, right? So that's the thing. But I am proud of the fact that I had that ability to diversify. I didn't think it was diversification at the time. I didn't know that that was the name of it. I just thought, hey, I'm investing in the stock market, but I also want to invest in real estate, but I also want to invest in vending machines, but I also, and I was able to do all of those things a little bit at a time. But strategically, if I had had the plan that I set forth for my one-on-one clients, where we make sure we have this foundation, it goes a lot smoother. It goes a lot faster. You're a lot more confident in the decisions that you're making because you understand why. Because I can explain to you why these are the options available to you, why you may want to choose A, B, or C. And then it's entirely up to you which one you want to pick, but you feel way more confident because you're competent. You have a financial understanding and literacy that you don't get really anywhere else. And so all of this to say, I am opening up for more one-on-one clients this month. I know we're coming to the end of April, but I do have space for a couple more one-on-one clients. So if you're thinking about your money, you're thinking about your plan, you're thinking about moving forward with life, and you're at the stage where you're like, you know what, I could be doing something different with my money. My money isn't working hard enough for me as it should be. And I think if you're not putting your money to work, then you are really just torturing yourself. And if that's what you know you need, if that's what you know you want, if you have a bigger vision for yourself than what you're experiencing right now, then I want you to book a call with me. Let's get on the phone and let's talk about it. I have an incredible sense of sussing out what it is that you know that you want, but you haven't had the opportunity to express to anybody else, that you may not have that circle, you may not have the confidence to express it to anybody else, or you may just think, well, if I express it, now what? What do I do with this? And that's very much what I do with my one-on-one clients. Of course, we talk about money, but money really impacts every aspect of your life. So if you're thinking about changing any aspect of your life, expanding it in any capacity, looking at it differently in any way, shape, or form, I can assure you that money's going to come into play. And I don't want money to be the sole decision maker for what you decide to do or not to do. I think that there's so much more in life, and money shouldn't be what's keeping you back or holding you back. So book a call with me. Like I said, I'm opening up a couple more spots. for one-on-one clients this month. And I would love to hear from you. And I'd love for us to get started because miraculous things can happen in 6 months. Let me tell you, I know that you can change your whole life in a year, but focusing on you and your future and your money for 6 months will change your life for the better. All right. Book a call. The link will be in the show notes below, and I will see you next week. Take care.